Now we will discuss neurolinguistic computational models, challenges and future directions. Recent decades have seen enormous advances in linguistics, psycholinguistics and neuroscience, and combining or putting their evidences together, cognitive sciences have begun to think of the brain as functioning very much like a computer. So now the shift is to look at brain as a kind of computer, or is brain a computer, a digital computer? Like the digital computer, the brain takes in data and outputs decisions and conclusions. So that is something very similar in both devices, that you have input and output process, which is there in brain as well as in computer. Now the nervous system basically fulfills the four criteria that define computational system. And basically what are the four criteria? Number one is having the ability, which is input output system. So nervous system has this, and then the computer also has the same feature. The second is that the system which is functionally organized. Nervous system is functionally organized in such a way that it has specific capacities. And again, computer has specific capacities, specific abilities. The third is that the brain is feedback control system. And same, we have the similar characteristic present in the computer as well. The fourth and the final one is basically the information processing. Now the brain receives input or any information and then processes that information. So that's processing information is also something which we find in computer. So basically all these four criteria show or are the examples of computational systems. So the nervous system, which fulfills the four criteria, also justify as having equation or some kind of equal, or you can say equivalent to computers. So a lot of research from the cognitive researchers or authors have been seen in this particular area, where they are looking at brain and computer having similar functions, or what are the similarities and differences that are there. So let's discuss that now. Now, neurolinguistic computational models, challenges and future direction was a study conducted by Brian in 2008. Where he gave module level structured models, emergent models, and then talked about the challenges and future directions. Now, module level structured models attempt to localize processing in particular neural modules on an anatomical level. It is clear that the brain is rich in structure. For example, there are at least 54 separate processing areas in visual cortex, but it is not clear whether these areas function as encapsulated modules or rather as interactive pieces of functional networks. One can study patients with lesion of different types in type of identifying double dissociation between information processing skills and lesion type. Other patients will have damaged segmental structure but normal prosody. This pattern of results would provide strong support for the notion that there is a localized cognitive module for the processing of prosody. Then emergent models, as we say, Rummelhart developed neural network learning algorithm which is called back propagation. Then we have PDP model, which basically based on back propagation algorithm are easy to develop and train. This framework has generated a proliferation of models of language learning. Then we have challenges and futures. The failure, we said, despite the various successes of both structured and emergent model, neurolinguistic computational models continue to suffer from a core limitation. However, recent work in the area of embodied cognition show that in neural terms, embodied cognition is basically something which relies heavily on a perception action cycle that works to interpret new perception in terms of the action needed to produce them. For example, when watching an experimenter grab a nut, a monkey will activate neurons in motor cortex that correspond to the areas that the monkey itself uses when grabbing a nut. These so-called mirror neurons form the backbone of a rich system for mirroring the actions of others by interpreting them in terms of or your own actions. A variety of recent computational models have tried to capture aspects of these perceptual motor linkages in the ways in which distal learning processes can train action patterns such as speech production on the basis of their perceptual product. So these are the models introduced by Brian in the neurolinguistic computational models, and the challenges as well as the future directions are concerned. To conclude, neurolinguistic computational models highlight differences and similarities between the processes of brain and computers.